Hello there and welcome to the 68th episode of the Retrotopia podcast. My name's Alan, I'll be your host for the intro today, and today Sam and myself, we are taking another trip back to Castlevania to talk about the original Castlevania released for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Before we get into all of that, of course, we've got to get through our intro, and if you're new to the podcast, first of all, thank you for joining us. I hope you enjoy the show. We will be talking Castlevania, probably in about 15 minutes or so. We've got to do our plugs, talk to some of our Patreons and all of that, and if you're just here to listen to us talk about Castlevania, then, I don't know, skip ahead 15 minutes or so, and you should be into the game chat. But if you want to stick around, as I said, I've got to get our plugs out the way, so of course, we have all of our social medias, our Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, X, Blue Sky, Discord, all of that good stuff, which you can find at linktree/Retrotopia. That's linktr.ee/Retrotopia. If you like what you hear, why not come and join, like, share, come and have a chat with us in the Discord, all of that good stuff. The party never ends in the Discord. Something else we rarely talk about, but if you do like what you're hearing, then maybe consider giving us a good review, perhaps. Or failing that, just tell a friend. Tell a friend about us. Tell them we don't suck and that they should listen to us. Would really appreciate that. Another thing that you can do, of course, if you want to support us even further, is you can join our free Patreon. We have extra shows on there. You can comment on episodes, you can vote in polls, you can listen to Retrobytes 15 days early, you can hear our Retrotopia After Dark, which is just a short snippet of our warm-up before we get into the meat of an episode. What else? You can listen to our quick play episodes, which are always fun, nice little mini reviews for our Patreons there. And at the $2 hero tier of Patreon, you can not only pick a quick play episode, a game for a host of your choice to play and review, you also get a shout out on the main episode, just like we're about to do here and now, because we have a new hero tier Patreon. So a huge thank you from all of us here at Retrotopia to the Big Deal. And you are a big deal because you're one of our Patreons, and we genuinely can't do this show without all of your support. We are so grateful to all of you. Thank you, the Big Deal. Okay, so one of the other things you get to do as Patreons, of course, is comment on the episodes. And, well, did somebody say culturally elegant? Because, well, that's what our 9-bit banter box is. Okay, and first up on the 9-bit banter box is the aforementioned The Big Deal, who says, "Hello gents, just came across the show and the Sonic 2 episode was a great place to start. After hearing about the time-travelling antics and the combined 7 dicks between the 3 of you, I'm sold enough and will be binging the show from the beginning. Also, shout out to future me when I catch up enough to hear this comment getting read." Well, first of all, welcome, the Big Deal, again. Really happy to hear that we've brought you over to the dark side, that is Retrotopia. I mean, the Sonic 2 episode was a lot of fun. I think that was my first full episode. I was just a guest at that point, which is wild to think about now. Have absolutely no recollection of the combined 7 dicks between the 3 of us, but I need no proof that is something that we said, because it definitely sounds like something we would say. And I would also like to shout out to future the Big Deal. Hope things are a bit better than they started off this year, future the Big Deal. But thank you very much. Appreciate you. Thanks for writing in. Moving on, we've got Wildcard, who says, "Alan, you wake up in a mysterious dungeon. Ooh. Beside you is a pot lid, 4 gold, 2 lockpicks, a torch, a rusted iron short sword, and a crudely drawn map. You hear footsteps approaching, 2 sets from the rear and a larger set from the front. What's your next move and how do you get out of the dungeon? Ooh, I mean, this kind of sounds like Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, so I don't know if you have an answer to this in mind, but I'm just going to say, so I've got 4 gold. I'm going to throw that gold down the corridor towards the 2 sets that are approaching from the rear. So I assume then that they will spend a little bit too long looking for gold, because if you find 4 gold there, you're going to assume that there's more. So that would probably buy me some time, which means all I've got to do is deal with the larger set of footsteps coming from the front. And I'm assuming these are all hostile because we're in a dungeon, right? So can't assume that this is safe. I tell you what I'll do. I will eat the rusted iron short sword in front of the whoever is in front of me, and I hope that will freak them out enough that they'll scarper away, just for long enough for me to have some breathing room there. I'm going to look at the crudely drawn map and see if I can find a wall that is close, an external wall perhaps, and find whatever room is closest to the outside of the dungeon. I am then going to use both of the lockpicks to tunnel my way out through the wall, using the torch, of course, to see which way I'm going. And what else do I have? I am going to use the pot lid somehow, inexplicably, to cover the hole that I've just dug in the wall, and I'm going to crawl through this tunnel. 2 lockpicks, of course, because one will invariably break halfway through, so I'll need the other one to get all the way through. I'll almost certainly end up in the dungeon sewer system, and then I'll have to crawl through a river of shit to get to freedom, which I will then do so, and then end up meeting Morgan Freeman on a beach somewhere. And, yeah, that's how I'll escape. That's what you had in mind, Wildcard. Appreciate the question, buddy. And Mr. Hooley brings us home with, how many bananas can you fit in your mouth? Asking for a friend. Serious question though. I have been watching the show Afterlife, which I recommend watching, and was wondering, do you guys use the phrase cheers like saying thank you? Well, Mr. Hooley, to answer your first question first, about 5, I think. These bananas are skinned. They have their peel still on, because I fucking hate bananas. I can't stand them, so I am not putting peeled bananas in my mouth, even for an experiment. So I'm going to assume about 5. I've got a fairly big gob, so I'm fairly certain I can take on 5 bananas, emphasis on the word bananas, at once, because I know what you fucking people are like. As for your second question, Afterlife, you know what, my wife really loves that show. I've never actually watched it. I've seen clips. It looks fine. I'm not the biggest fan of Ricky Gervais. I mean, I don't like his shows so much, but I am a fan of Ricky Gervais the person, if that makes sense. You know, all of his opinions on like animal cruelty and what have you. Like I really fuck with that. So good person, just don't really like his cinematic work, if you can call it that. And yes, we do use the phrase cheers as a way of saying thank you. So it's a phrase that we can use to say, yeah, we can toast people, you know, raise your glass, cheers. And it's also a way of saying thank you. Very informal, but it's just like you know, cheers for writing in, Mr. Hooley. Appreciate it. And yeah. That's it for another 9-bit banter box. Thanks guys for writing in. We always love your comments. Always a lot of fun. So, with that out of the way, what have I been up to recently? What have I been playing? Let's keep this short, because this episode goes fairly long, as it is. I have been playing Assassin's Creed Mirage, because I am addicted to Assassin's Creed games, and I will play them as long as they keep making them, and really enjoying this one. Much more stripped-back affair than some of the other ones, like Odyssey and... Oh, shit, what was the Viking one now? Valhalla, I think. Was it? I don't know. There's been too many Norse-themed video games recently. They all tend to blur into one. Yeah, much more like the original Assassin's Creed game, which I really do appreciate. We have been playing Borderlands 2 still. In fact, in a couple of minutes, I'll be shooting off to go and play some more with the wife. So really close. We're on the DLCs now, so we're pretty close to finishing that one. Lots of Castlevania, of course, for this episode. I did finally manage to beat it again just before we recorded, so that felt really good. And looking to start a couple of other odd games picked by some of the Patreons there, which I'm really looking forward to get into. But I'll keep that close to my chest until I've played and reviewed them. Mm. So that's what I've been up to, which leads us, of course, to well, me again, putting on a silly voice for your entertainment with the Gentleman's Interlude. Castlevania 1987 for the NES. A game where the so-called heroes believed that their little whips and shiny crosses could somehow stand up to the majesty of a true vampire lord like myself. How utterly laughable. But alas, I digress, as you wish for details of this attempt at a narrative. Castlevania, developed by Konami, was released in North America on May 1st, 1987, though it had already graced Japanese shores a year earlier in 1986. It was the dawn of the NES era, and Konami thought they could pencil in a story involving my domain and a family of so-called vampire hunters, the Belmonts. A ridiculously arrogant family, one who simply can't seem to stay out of my way. The plot is a pathetic tale of Simon Belmont, the latest in the Belmont line, supposedly tasked with journeying through my castle to defeat me. Simon, whip in hand, fights his way through a series of miserable levels full of monsters, all the while claiming he's doing it for the greater good, when it's really just a vendetta of his ancestors who failed, one after another, to defeat me. How quaint, really. The Belmonts think they can end my reign, but no amount of holy nonsense or wooden weapons can hope to rid the world of me. The game itself, for all its charitable praise, isn't much more than a repetitive slog. Simon goes from room to room battling a variety of grotesque monsters, none of which even come close to the grandeur of my minions. And at the end of each stage he faces one of my loyal underlings, from the mockery of Frankenstein's monster to the laughable Medusa. And then finally, after a drawn-out trek through my magnificent castle, Simon reaches me, only to be defeated in an utterly anticlimactic final battle. But of course, the fool had no chance from the start. The developer, Konami, surely intended this to be some great victory for the heroes of the world, but as history would have it, they couldn't even be bothered to offer me a proper death. The Belmonts may have thought they won barely, but I know the truth. The night will always return. The eternal darkness is mine. No matter how many games they create, my power will rise again, just as it always has. So if you care to play this mediocre little title, enjoy the shallow victory it offers, but know that it's nothing but a fleeting moment in the grand scheme of things. The Belmonts are nothing more than a footnote in my eternal story. All right, that's quite enough of that. Now, before we get into talking about Castlevania, of course, we always love to hear your thoughts on the game in question. And first up, we have Crispy Socks. Ugh. Um, Maybe wash those, buddy. Crispy Socks says, I rented this game all the time, never could get very far, but still to this day will fire it up time to time. But fuck the stairs and the Medusa heads. Oh, my friend, listen, you're going to have a good time with this episode then, mate, because we get into it about those stairs and the Medusa heads. They feature quite heavily in this episode. And I agree. I agree. This is an absolutely fantastic game. And even if you can't get very far, it's still a lot of fun to just chuck on and just play for a bit. It has that one more time kind of a charm. Good comment, Crispy Socks. Thank you very much. And finally, we have Wildcard, who says, I know nothing of this game, but I'm pretty sure the main guy uses a whip. So whip me, daddy, whip me real good. That's pretty on brand. That's probably the most wild card of wildcard comments. You know, if, I mean, we could set up a new tier on the Patreon if you're willing to pay for such services. I'd get the old whip out and see how it goes. Thanks, Wildcard, for taking this to a weird place once again. All right. Well, thanks to everyone who's written in. As always, keep writing in. We love reading. We love seeing what you guys think, and it's genuinely one of my favorite parts of the show. But it's time to get into it. So, crack that whip and be sure to check the walls for suspicious meat, because we're about to talk about Castlevania, released in Japan in 1986, North America in 1987, and in Europe in 1988 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Thanks for listening, guys, and please enjoy the episode. We are back, and if you didn't get it from that introduction, we are talking about Castlevania for the Nintendo Entertainment System. You've heard enough out of me. With me, as always, is this delicious hunk of wall meat that we call Sam. Sam, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, pretty good. This game kicks my ass, so I'm going to be leaning on you for some of the extra bits that I didn't see.
Oh, well, I mean that's a good place to start, I suppose. I mean, you've played this just recently. What's your history? What's what? Tell me, what is Sam's experience with Castlevania?
I don't have too much of a history going way back with Castlevania, but I definitely, I think I first played this one when I got the collection on Switch.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
My first Castlevania game, though, was back when I was in college days. I had the what was it? The Dracula X Chronicles on PSP. And that was like my real introduction to Castlevania. And so I played Symphony of the Night, and I believe I know I played Rondo of Blood. I don't know if I got all the way through it. That's a tough game, which we covered in the backlog. You should go check out the Rondo of Blood episode if you're a Castlevania fan, because that was a fun one. But yeah, this one I probably have played it for the first time within the last couple of years, but I really enjoy it. I love Castlevania. I like the challenge, although this one's a little too tough for my taste. I can't get all the way through it, but I know you can because you've done it twice. What's your history with Castlevania?
I have. Do you know what? My history is significantly less than yours because I was really late to the Castlevania series. Probably within, God, I don't know, the last 10 years or so. I mean, as you know, I never had a NES growing up, or
Yeah.
NES or whatever you want to call it. So a lot of these games I only came to when I actually got one later on in life. And my initial experiences with Castlevania were mostly with the Metroidvania ones. I think Symphony of the Night may have been the first one that I ever played, but then I went back and played this because, I mean, it's undeniably one of the NES games. It's
Yeah.
it's a stone cold classic. I mean, just look what's come of it. There's an entire series that has sprung up at this game. It's basically redefined genres and created a whole new one all of its own. So
Right.
I had to see where it started. This and Metroid, obviously. I fucking love this game. I love this game.
I do too.
I have only beaten it twice, not for a lack of trying, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's obviously got that old Nintendo hard to it, which
Yeah.
we're kind of used to at this point. But this will still test you. But I don't ever find it. Oh, well, okay. I was going to say I don't ever find it frustrating, but there's some stuff we'll get into in a little while. Before we do, just got a question for you. So this is our second, you and I, our second trip to Castlevania.
It is.
Um, are we gonna save Brian this time or no?
Well, I can't because I can't fucking get very far. Well, I should say I shouldn't say that. I can get. Well, I'm actually looking through. I found a website that has all the maps of the levels. Like you used to look when I like. If you listen to our Donkey Kong Country episode, I mentioned checking out the Nintendo powers and looking at the maps. You can pretty well find maps for any old 2D platformer
Yeah.
on online right now, and I'd say I can get. Let's see, did I get here? What is this one?
I mean, I know you've
Oh,
made it at least halfway through because we were talking about your experiences with the Mummy Men.
oh yeah, no, I can get through. Yeah, well past halfway through, but it's like those last those last levels are just crazy. That bridge. Oh
It's
man, it's
it is a
disgusting.
it it is a very very difficult game, and yet I think the difficulty curve is actually fairly reasonable. I mean, this game is
Yeah.
very hard, but it does a lot of things right that mitigate the game rage that you might get off of it. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, where should we start? Should we talk about the
Ah,
levels?
man.
Should we talk about the
Yeah,
gameplay?
we could. Yeah, and just to go back to your earlier question, I don't think I can ever, unless it's one of the Metroidvania types. I don't think I'm going to be able to. Sorry, Brian. I think you're going to be in Castle Dracula for a while, unless
God
you have
damn it!
unless you have Alan come sweep you off your feet. But
I
it's
I
it's
would
too
I
too
would
tough
do it.
for me.
I would do it for Brian. I would do anything for Brian. Brian, I'm coming for you.
Oh, cool. Not to derail, but like you can open up on this website that I found. You can open like a full map of the castle, just the way it plays out in the game. Because like there's this isn't your typical Castlevania game where it's an actual Metroidvania. There's no exploration. It's very linear, but
Mm-hmm.
all of the man, this is cool. All of the pieces of the map are connected together. So it is like you are traversing an entire castle. Every
Oh
time you
yeah,
climb the stairs and go to another level and then you start working your way back the other way, you are actually progressing through the rooms of a castle. And
yeah.
then, meeting monsters and things along the way. So yeah, pretty fucking cool idea here. Yeah, I've gotten well into this.
It really is, and
Yeah.
that's a good place to start because you, as you say, you work your way sort of actually into the castle, into the entryway, and you work your way through all of these different parts of the castle, and it is, as you say, all interconnected. And what I
Yeah.
really like is that the game flows really nicely. So basically, I mean, you have 6 quote unquote levels in the game, which are usually made up of what, 3 or 4 sections, and
Yeah,
all of the
stages they call
sections.
them. Yeah.
That's right. So all of these stages flow into each other really smoothly, and each stage basically acts as a checkpoint. So if you die, you go back to the last checkpoint. And of course, if you game over, you go back to the start of the level. And
Right.
that, I mean, I didn't want to go like hard on some of my favorite aspects just yet, but that is one of my favorite things about this game, is that it's hard, yes, but it doesn't punish you for failure. The worst that's going to happen is you're going to be sent back to the start of the entire level that you're on,
Right.
which is really fucking cool of them.
You mean, and by level you mean stage, right? Like you go back to the screen, basically, kind of like the portion of the level that you're on, because as soon as you progress to the next stage, that becomes your next checkpoint.
Sure, but when you
Yeah.
game over now, what they call them here is blocks. So basically, the each
Right.
each of the 6 blocks is made up of 3 stages. Now, say you've gotten through block 1, you're on block 2. You game over there, you're going to start from the start of block 2. A game over in this game, as long as you press continue, will literally, there is no limit to the continues, and you start back at the very beginning of that block of stages that you're on, which
Oh,
means
gotcha. Okay.
you can
Yes.
literally, you can play this game indefinitely without having to game over and do everything all over again from the very beginning of the game. And I think that, what a nice and generous thing Konami did there, because I can't imagine trying to play this game and game overing and having to start again from the beginning. And I know other games do it, but fuck me. Like, I would never have beaten this game if that wasn't a feature.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, it would take, much longer to get there, right?
Oh
Um,
god, like you would have to really put your reps in.
right. Um, yeah, I was just like, as I'm going through this map, I'm just like transfixed by this. I actually dropped it into the chat that we have on
Oh
Discord.
yeah.
So you can actually, and they even show, because you can, as you're walking through, if you've never played Castlevania, as you're walking through, there's like little candles on the wall,
Yep.
and you can whip those, and then that's kind of like where you get your items. So like the hearts don't fill your health, but they do allow you to. They basically are the consumable. Um, I don't know what you would call it, fuel for your secondary weapon. So you have your
Mm-hmm.
whip, and you can upgrade that twice. And then you have all of the weapons. So there's like the axe and the holy water and the cross boomerang and all that kind of stuff. This map shows exactly what's inside each candle, which is
Oh
really cool.
nice. That
So
is
it
cool.
shows like, yeah, where all the money is, where the items are and stuff. I was just thinking, as I'm looking at this map though, like a lot of these, I had mentioned earlier today, like, does anyone else get away with making basically like the same game or like recycling levels over and over again? Because and they do, but like this is an early example of like, man, they nailed the formula right away and then just made iterations on this, because a lot of these levels that you see in this game are in Rondo of Blood.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
I know they're in Super Castlevania 4. Like that first level is basically like how most side-scrolling, just kind of like action platformer Castlevanias start. You've
Yeah.
got the approach to the castle, which is usually pretty easy and just kind of lets you build up, upgrade your whip and build up some items and hearts and stuff. And then you're off to the races. But you're in that main hall. Like the structure of the castle has really not changed too much over the years.
No. And it kind of makes sense though, right? Because it's
Yeah.
the same Castlevania. It's I like the familiarity, at least in that initial sort of area of the game. And I know we're kind of talking about other Castlevanias as well, but you can't help but compare to basically the grandfather of them all. And
All right.
it's nice to have, especially because when I played Super Castlevania 4, I was just like, oh shit, this feels like home. I know my way
Right.
around this thing, and it's just a nice little callback. So yeah, I mean, like you said, they really got the map and everything sort of nailed right from the
Yeah.
off. And
Yeah, because it's like when you're playing a Castlevania, it's like you're gonna get a dungeon. You're gonna have to go underground to like that kind of grotto cave area.
yep,
Um, you're gonna deal with the clock tower. You're gonna deal with the
oh,
bridge. You
oh,
know exactly what Dracula like when you get to Dracula's chamber. It's like exactly what that looks like.
oh
And the
yeah,
other cool thing graphically is that when you're on the bridge in the kind of the outdoor sections, there's actually kind of two bridges, but on the first one, right before you fight the mummies, you see the tower, like Dracula's
mm-hmm,
tower in the background right before you get in there, and it's like, oh, that's where you're going eventually.
yeah, yeah,
It's really freaking cool, and you really don't see it unless you look at the whole thing wholesale, like
no.
how everything connects together.
And while I won't say that this is necessarily the best looking game, certainly on the NES, I think they do a lot with a little.
Yeah,
It's everything. You can clearly see what everything's supposed to be. There's every single stage looks noticeably different. So, okay, I'm underground now. This makes sense. Okay, I'm back in the castle. Okay, this is clearly a dungeon. So they do a really good job of differentiating all the different stages. So you genuinely feel like you are on this epic quest through this giant fucking castle.
yeah.
It's never boring to look at. You may not have the time to actually smell the roses, but when you
No.
do get a chance to look around, it's very impressive.
Yeah, it's funny. I forgot that this game actually, and as most platformers or just like kind of side-scrolling action games did at the time, there's a timer for each level. I don't know. That's probably a holdout
Mm,
from the arcade days and stuff. It's just, scores and timers are just kind of ingrained you know, into video games, especially at this
sure.
time. But like I kind of forgot, and I was like kind of dicking around trying to find all the items and stuff in that first level, and like before I got to the bat, I'm like, why is the game making such a weird sound? I was like, oh, I ran out of time. Fuck.
Oh shit! Really? I have never
Yeah,
run
I
out of
did. I
time
ran
on
out of
this.
time because I was just like walking around. I was like, yeah, this is fun. I'm just gonna whip these ghouls and try to see if I can find all the secrets and stuff. And well, I took my sweet ass time a little bit too much.
She's like, "Come on, Simon, let's move things along. This
Yeah,
is not a
let's
sightseeing tour, Mr. Belmont.
keep her moving.
Yeah, yeah. You've got vampires to kill and humans to save. And speaking of killing vampires, let's talk about Vampire Killer. Ah, the
Yeah.
what? So what do you think? What do you think, Sam? Why a whip? Why not a sword? Where do you land on that?
I think the whip gives you more reach. I'm actually really happy that they landed on whip. I mean, between a whip or a sword. I think in what am I trying to? Oh, Symphony of the Night. What was I? I
Yep,
was like, what am I trying to think of? You actually play not as one of the Belmonts, right? You play as a Alucard,
that's right.
correct?
Yes.
And he's got kind of a sword, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yeah,
And
you can sort of switch them out. You get a variety of different swords. So, but yeah, there's
yeah,
nothing quite
but
like
this,
that whip.
yeah, it's unique. It's like what other game has a whip? And don't come at me. I'm sure there are. But like
Sure.
especially at this time, like if you're into like the high fantasy or the horror or the sword and sorcery type um aesthetic, it's going to be a sword usually. Like
Oh
even
yeah,
super ghouls and ghosts, like, I mean he's throwing it, which is cool, but like it's basically a sword, right?
yeah.
Link's got a sword, everyone's got a sword. Um Simon's got a whip, and it's a pretty fucking kick-ass whip.
It really is. I mean, talk about an iconic piece of gaming history. It's just like
Yeah.
at some point somebody said, you know what, we're going to use a whip, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Castlevania is quite the same without it. I mean, it has become
No.
synonymous almost. And yeah, like you say, Symphony of the Night and what have you, they do branch out. But you are always just thinking, I kind of miss that whip. And all right, it's kind of basic in this game. I mean, you don't have necessarily the range in multiple directions that you get from
Yeah,
later. But I don't
yeah.
think that hurts this game at all.
No, it doesn't. And like it's funny because once your whip is upgraded, and they give you the upgrade relatively quickly,
Oh yeah,
within the first couple of torches at any point. Like when you die, you go back to the wimpy little limp dick whip that you start with, and then you get the upgrades pretty quick. But the reach on that thing like really works to your advantage because there's spots where there's enemies walking around on the other platform. You got to jump across a platform, and it's like you can stand and whip pretty far across and clear platforms.
yeah.
So you can jump on them.
Anything that gives you a bit of range on some of these enemies is welcome as far as I'm concerned, because
Yeah.
and it is nice. It's almost redundant that they give you all of the power-ups of the whip sort of right out of the gate, because it's just like it sort of makes it unnecessary to depower it when you die. But it's just like, you know what? I'm just like, it always feels good when you get those power-ups for the whip,
Yeah.
even if they are just like one after another.
I mean, there's still some effort that you have to put forth. Like if you die and start back at the start of the stage, it's like, yeah, that's fine. You start over, but like you still got to climb a little bit. Like make sure they're keeping you on your toes a little bit. You got to
Yeah.
make sure you re-upgrade your shit, or you're gonna have a lot of trouble.
Yeah, you're right. I suppose if you just went on and just didn't attack the candelabra and and get your power up, there you go, and get your power ups, then it's like awfully distracting. Hearts inside of candles, meat inside of walls. It's all very strange in Castlevania.
Just very weird. Yeah, he keeps his stuff in weird spots.
He certainly does, and that's another thing I was going to say. Meat in a hole in the wall. I mean, is that not just Dracula's glory hole?
There's a chance you're going to get a dick. It's the meat glory hole. It's like sushi glory hole.
You know what? I mean, what a hilarious! I think again another iconic bit of Castlevania. It's just the meat in the walls. It's
just the meat in the wall. Yeah, wall meat, whips.
Do you know what though? It looks so appealing because every time that I smash a hidden block and find some of that juicy wall meat,
looks good.
I'm so happy to find it that I just think, wow, that must be the most delicious random bit of masonry meat I've ever fucking seen in my life, because to heal you, it's essential. You always need those health ups.
Yeah, it's like, and that the meat always, it looks like that cartoony like bone in roast or whatever, just like in like cartoons and stuff.
Yeah,
it just makes me hungry every time. I don't know why.
Absolutely.
But yeah, God, this game is great.
It is.
Enemies. Want to talk about some enemies? Which one really grinds your gears?
Enemy wise, well, there are two very obvious choices for enemies that I just fucking despise.
Yeah.
In second place, it's probably going to be the flea men.
Yes.
They can, and I'm not including bosses in this. This is just the bog standard foot soldiers we're talking about at the moment. Yeah. They can eat every inch of my dick because
they're the worst.
Especially
well, no, they're not the worst. They're the second to worst.
They're the second to worst. Everyone knows what the first worst are, but especially those the flea men that are dropped by the birds as well. It's just like, if you don't keep a handle on those fucking things, like, you will get swarmed, and they always seem to be just ahead of your whip. They always just seem to launch themselves into the air. If they get a good jump in and go over you, now you're in trouble. Now you
or they're behind you, and to be honest, like Richter, or this is not Richter, this is Simon, is very slow and clunky. There is
Sure.
absolutely no run. He is not bothered. He is just going to walk his way through this castle at his own pace.
That's right. This guy is just tanking his way through. I mean, again, having played the Game Boy Castlevania: The Adventure, which, if you're a Patreon, there is.
Oh yeah,
Actually, it might
that's
even
another
be
good
before.
plug.
Might even be before it went to Patreon, but yeah, become a Patreon anyway.
That's an early one.
I've done a quick play on Castlevania: The Adventure. Now, if you want fucking slow, my god, so this feels like a sprint compared to that. So I don't find the speed that Simon goes to be all that much of a problem, because frankly,
No.
like, if you were going too fast in this game, you'd get yourself into trouble. We'd have that Donkey Kong Country thing where you're just running into whatever's coming in from the side,
Just launching yourself off the screen.
Exactly. This
Yeah.
gives you a good amount of time to react to what's happening. And
True. Yeah, I don't mind the speed too much. But yeah, just there is no like hold down B and run or anything.
No.
And there are some. And what was your? Sorry, we got sidetracked. What was your obvious number one worst?
I'll tell you what. I'll give you my obvious number one. Take it away. You know what it is. Come on, let's hear it.
Oh, it's the Medusa heads.
It's the fucking Medusa heads. My
although,
God.
if you time it right, you can kind of make sure that they pass under or over you. You know, because they kind of move in like a sine wave, you know, like just kind of like up and down. Oh, yeah, I know, right?
Wow. Getting
such
mathematical on your ass.
Yeah, math and such. But what can really kill you is like if you just kind of move forward and pay attention and kind of like gauge where they are and decide whether you need to jump or not. You can kind of make it through. There's areas where like if you just pedal to the metal as fast as Simon will go, which is not very fast, and just walk forward, they miss you.
Yes.
With the exception of a couple parts where you have to do some jumps and stuff. But where if you kind of panic and stop or turn or anything,
yes,
they will come at you from whichever way you're facing. And
exactly.
So you can have them coming in. Yeah. It's like, oh God, it's like that Sunny episode where like Dennis, where they do like the family fight and like Dennis hates the noise that the game makes when he's wrong. And it's like where he starts like, ah.
No joke.
It's kind of like that. Like if you stop and let yourself get swarmed, then you're in trouble.
And you nailed it, because as long as you're moving forward, and you can jump over them and what have you, generally speaking, you're okay, assuming there's nothing else on the screen. Because as long as you're moving and jumping and what have you, generally they're manageable. Where it becomes difficult is, as you say, if you pause or go back or turn around or get intercepted by another enemy, suddenly you're distracted. And now they're coming in from all angles, and you've lost that cadence where you can basically avoid everything, and that is when you're dentist.
Yeah, that's where when it gets under your guard and you're just kind of fucked.
Absolutely. And that is exactly what for the longest time would kill every single one of my playthroughs of this game, because the hallway, Death's Corridor or Death's Hallway or whatever you want to call it, leading up to that Grim Reaper boss, that is an area that I could not for years get past. And
wait, is that? I'm looking at it now. That is where there's like a lot of stairs and those skeletons that throw bones, right? And then there's Medusa heads in there too.
Well, after that, you get to just basically it's a linear path with the Medusa.
Oh, right,
heads.
I see it here. Yeah, there's those little like knights that are pretty easy, but if you've got Medusa heads coming at you while you're trying to deal with those, that is very tough.
Exactly. Yep. So
and then at the end of the hallway, I mean, one of the tougher bosses in the game.
Sure.
In Death, because he's got those little scythes that whip around.
If you give him the chance, there is there is a way to beat the Grim Reaper where he will not get a licking. Which is what I do.
That's smart. I would just get my shit kicked in.
just cheese it. Actually, that'll lead us into talking about those secondary items. Because
Yeah.
what's your favorite secondary item?
I tell you what, I don't usually use it because I think in other games it's not as OP as it is in the original. But that stopwatch absolutely destroys. It doesn't do, all it does is freeze time, so it just freezes your enemy. But if you have it in a boss fight with enough heart power to use it, I walked through a couple of those boss fights. The Medusa one, there's like a giant Medusa head that kind of floats around. I just threw that time stop in and just whipped the shit out of it, and that was it. Although I don't think it works on the mummies.
No, I'm sure I've tried that.
They're wise to it, where it's like, oh, it doesn't work anymore. So it works to an extent, but yeah, I did like that because actually, if I found myself in trouble on a particularly busy screen with enemies or something, I could always throw the stopwatch and just kind of either take stock, move past it, or kill everything that was there.
Do you know what? That's really interesting because I hardly ever used the stopwatch. In fact, I didn't even know it was effective against Queen Medusa there.
Yeah, it is.
And,
but otherwise I really like the axe.
The axe is fantastic. In fact, we have a bit of a catchphrase in this house because the number of times I have played this game with my wife around, and I find that you have to. Well, you don't have to, but it helps to get the right kind of item to fight the right kind of boss. There is a good amount of strategy that is involved with playing through this game with these secondary items. You know, it's not like Mega Man, but it's almost like it. If you get the right secondary item, a lot of these bosses become a lot easier. And so with that first block of levels there leading to the Phantom Bat, I would always say out loud, gotta get the axe. Gotta get the axe. Because that is the most useful weapon to take out a flying enemy. And now whenever I'm playing Castlevania, my wife says, did you get the axe? No matter what game I'm playing, no matter if it's this one or any other one, it doesn't even matter if it's the right item that I need. She's just like, you got to get the axe. Got to get the axe.
Yep, just make sure you go get that axe.
Got to get the axe. But
yeah, and I like the holy water too. That's a good one.
That's my favorite, hands down.
Yep,
hands down. Because again, especially for some of those later bosses like Frankenstein and Igor.
Fuck.
If you can make, yeah, right. So basically, if you don't know, I mean, let's talk a bit about the bosses, shall we? I mean, so you've got the Phantom Bat, as we've said, which is, as it sounds, giant bat. Clobber it with an axe, you're pretty good. We talked about Queen Medusa. The mummy men are just that, mummies who throw their.
But there's two of them, and they're throwing their shit-stained toilet paper at you. But basically, they throw wrappings, and the wrappings kind of like float around the screen towards you. There's two of them.
There are two of them. Did you find a technique that actually worked with the mummy men? Because out of all of the bosses, the mummies are just the ones that I just have to sort of spray and pray, as it were.
Yeah, I did have to. I beat them with like one health bar, like one little health piece left, and I basically just kind of stand in the pocket and whip them.
Yeah,
There is I think it seems like the developers knew that the mummies were going to be a pain in the ass because they put a wall meat like right in the arena with the enemy. That you can get. It's hidden, but you can get it before they start fighting you. But the other thing I would try to do is I always found that if I'm out in the middle of the whatever the screen is where you're fighting the enemy, I always found it more you're going to get hit more often if you stand right in the middle, or if you try to dodge around, then you're kind of just leaving yourself open. I try to immediately get to one of the corners.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of sit in there and
hope for the best.
Just hope for the best. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's the only set of bosses that I don't really have a technique for. And it is exactly as you say, get in a corner, which usually gets you hit on the way there, and then just whip and hope for the best. And then just
whip as fast as you can. And then that's what I do for the Frankenstein little flea flicker Igor guy too.
See, the Frankenstein and Igor boss is particularly frustrating because it's Frankenstein's monster that you want to be focusing on, but that
Right.
little fucking shit Igor is bouncing around the screen just throwing
Yeah.
fireballs at you, and he is such a pain in the ass. And
You can kill the fireballs if your whip hits them, but if your whip hits the little Igor dude, he just kind of like flickers for a bit. But
yeah,
actually, what my technique for Frankenstein is just to get right in there and actually jump on there's like a little platform right in front of him, and
yep,
actually get there and I crouch and I just start whipping, whip, 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 and then I keep the little Igor guy kind of flashing, and you can clear off like a good quarter to a third of Frankenstein's health before Igor even starts moving again. And
that's
if you time it right, which is just dumb luck at this point, you might be able to pause him again. So that's kind of what I do.
yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, if I can, and there's no guarantee I can get to Frankenstein and Igor with it, but if I can keep hold of the holy water that you get, because
Oh yeah,
Frankenstein and Igor is, I think that's after you've been down in the caverns, I think.
yeah,
And there is a holy water there, sort of early on. If you can keep
right.
that all the way through, if you just stand on that platform and just keep whipping holy waters, they can't move.
Oh,
They
that's
will.
awesome.
They are literally stun locked, and that's an easy win. But
Yeah,
again,
and
the difficulty in that is getting through the entire level without dying.
yeah, that's the trick. And I think here's a good spot to pause when we're talking about the bosses and talk about the kind of unintentional enemies of Castlevania. There's three that I can think of. And I think you can guess what a couple of them are, but there's one that I think you might not consider. Number one is the stairs, obviously.
Absolutely. But
And in later games they added like that you can kind of jump and press up and kind of catch the stairs halfway up. In this one you're hoofing it from the bottom, and
yep.
and it's very slow, and you're
And
basically locked in.
You are glued to them stairs.
Yeah, and then also I've been on a platform that has stairs on them and wanting to crouch and whip, and he just starts walking his ass back down the stairs. So the
Yep.
stairs are to be treated with caution. The second one is knockback, because
Mhm.
if you are, I'd say there's four. The second one is knockback, because as you're progressing, if you get to a platform and then you get hit, it will knock you back far enough that you will probably fall directly into a hole.
Oh yes.
And that's a one hit kill basically. So there's a spot relatively early on in the game where the Medusa heads, I think, get particularly frustrating because they can knock you right back into a hole.
I know exactly where you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, and in later games, if you fall down a hole, you just end up in like a different area, which is better, I think. But I mean, that makes this game more challenging. Like, if you get knocked back in, like, say, Rondo of Blood, you just get like knocked back to a previous screen, or you go into a different pit and have to find your way back up a different way.
That's right.
So we're if you're keeping score, we have stairs and knockback. The third one that I kind of thought of is just the way that it controls. When you jump, if you want to jump forward onto a platform, you also have to be pressing the forward button or he does not move. There is no like Mario midair chicanery. You can't be like switching directions midair. You have to commit to the direction you want to go by pressing the button to move forward while you jump. And that can be a little bit of a curve.
That's interesting because, yeah, you're absolutely right, but I never really gave it much thought. But yeah, the jump is the jump, and there's no shortening the jump. There's no lengthening the jump. It's just like, it's almost like, I guess, like the old Prince of Persia in that sense. Just
Right.
like,
It's very
basically
old style.
Yeah, just jumping one space or what have you forward, and yeah, if you're not lined up properly, that's a one-way trip to Holesville.
Yes. And then my last one that I don't know if you'll consider one of the kind of unintended enemies of the game is other items that you don't want.
Oh my God.
Because if you, let's say you have the holy water and you think you're good to go, and then you whip one of those candelabras and you get the fucking knife,
Oh,
you're fucked.
the knife is nobody's favorite weapon. And if it is your
No.
favorite weapon, join our Discord, please, and let me know and justify your choice for me, please, because I have to know.
I think the plus side of the knife is that it gives you the range, but I think
Sure.
you don't really get it, or you don't really see that in this game as much, I don't think. But I know in later games the knife gives you the range at the cost of damage. It doesn't do as much damage.
No, you might as well be throwing toothpicks.
Right.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because that is a source of near constant frustration. It's just like, because again, where we're talking about keeping these items for the boss, it's just like, if you're not paying attention, and the odds are you're going to play these levels like hundreds of times potentially, and you
Yeah.
tend to get a
If
really
you're
good
me,
idea
for sure. Yeah.
well, even if you're me, mate, but if you're not paying attention and you just whip that candelabra and pick up, and it's, oh, for fuck's sake, and it's just like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to carry on and just give it a go with the fucking knife, but I might as
And
well
that's
just...
another thing they fixed in later games too, because if you pick up a different item in say like a rondo of blood, it will swap your item and the other one will just kind of fall to the ground, and you have
can
a
carry
very
on
limited
swapping.
time to pick it back up, but you can
But
at least get it back.
You have a chance. Yeah.
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 Unless it falls into a pit.
No. That I'll give you. That's certainly... I mean, I guess it's the game's way of telling you to sort of just pay attention to what you're doing, learn the levels, which you're going to be doing anyway. Yep. The knockback, it is frustrating, but I find you've just as much chance of falling down a pit as not. And it's just kind of a feature of the game. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just there. It's something you just have to bear in mind when you're playing.
None of it really bothers me. It's just
no. The stairs are unforgivable. The fact that the stairs basically cease to exist if you jump through them is just ridiculous. It's just like, you may think, oh, well, yeah, I'm gonna fall to my doom, but the stairs are there. That's fine. I'll just land on the stairs. And
no, you won't.
The fuck you will. You are dead, my friend. And I don't really understand why. I guess it's that NES hard thing, but it's just like, come the fuck on. Stairs are stairs.
Yeah, I do appreciate that they improved at least part of... I mean, you still have to press up to climb the stairs, but at least in later games, they allowed you to kind of like jump halfway up the stairs and catch them halfway through. That helps. But yeah, this is going all the way back down to roots, and you are not doing that.
But I mean, for all of my bitching, it's almost like a bit of a Castlevania meme. So, like,
right,
it is frustrating when you're playing the game, but it's just like, if it wasn't there, I'd think I'd be like, nah, Now it's not really Castlevania,
right? Yeah, this game and like even like a Mega Man 1 or Mega Man 2 is just like, you get used to mechanics that they add in later games. Like for Castlevania, you can usually do like a jump and a backwards flip, and that helps you avoid some things sometimes. And like Mega Man and introduce the slide and that sort of thing. And then when you go back to play an earlier entry in the series, you're like, oh fuck, that's right, I can't do all these things. And you got to kind of like readjust yourself to like the bare bones experience, which I really appreciate.
Absolutely. And, to say nothing of the fact that nothing in this game is broken. This is an incredibly, incredibly well-made game. And yeah, I mean, some facets are a bit on the basic side, but that's only with the benefit of hindsight. It's just like, we know what became of this series as it went on. And you would think, okay, well, what's this, 1980? I don't know. I haven't done the intro yet. Let's say 1987.
1987, yeah.
Nice. Like, for the time, this is just a solid action platforming experience. You know, it just works. It's smooth. It just plays.
Yeah, it's God, what a game.
What a game.
I'm always awed that games that have, I mean, in our circles, I would say, like in retro gamer circles, not necessarily the people at large are not probably clamoring to play an old Castlevania game from the 80s. But these games have held up like this. You're talking Mega Man. I mean, games that came out either like right when or just before I was born, even like good Lord, had we like mastered the, Zelda, Mega Man, Castlevania, Contra. Those are games that like stand the test of time and also really nailed their formula early.
Absolutely.
If you think about, like, you can still play a Castlevania game and find, like, got to get the axe, like you said, like, doesn't matter.
Yes.
Like, that there's those familiar elements that are going to carry over game to game. And it's always interesting to me that they've established them pretty much immediately.
Absolutely. Get the axe or get the holy water.
Oh, holy water, yeah.
I'll tell you what, going back to them bosses there, the Grim Reaper, as I was saying.
Oh, fucking Grim Reaper.
The fucking Grim Reaper. If you can hold on to your holy water all the way through and power it up, because we didn't mention that you can actually power up these secondary items.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get
by collecting a second one of the same thing? Or
well, you get those little blocks with 2 on it, with 3 on it.
That's what those do? Oh,
yeah.
Damn it. I wish I would have seen the manual. Because, like, I always, when I see them, I try to get them. And, like, damn, I should probably get that. Because it's probably something good.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you do that.
But it powers up your secondary. Okay.
That's right. And if the Grim Reaper, he basically just appears above one of the platforms to the right-hand side of the screen. If you can get into the room, just jump and launch a holy water up there, and then just keep launching holy waters onto that ledge. He's stun locked. He can't do anything. He never gets a single scythe off.
Well, damn it. Because once he starts, it's another one of those things where, just like the Medusas, if you get kind of caught up in trying to either avoid the scythes or trying to whip the scythes or whatever, it's like that GIF you found earlier today. Where it was man, that guy is just like a skilled player, no doubt, but like, holy shit, is he just focusing on those scythes? And he's hitting all of them to his credit, but like, holy shit, or their credit.
Yeah.
Could be a girl.
You don't have the maneuverability in this game to let the screen get too busy.
No, not at all. Like that. It's very plotting and deliberate, the character of Simon. So you really need to play up on your advantages so that your disadvantages aren't highlighted by the enemy, because the enemies are designed to take advantage of your disadvantages by, just like I'm making a lot of comparisons to Mega Man, even though it's a very different game. But like Mega Man does the same thing where enemies will come in from angles that you can't hit. So you need to be smarter than that and platform or get yourself in position so that you can either avoid them or get the shots off to take care of the enemies. And that's where the challenge comes in.
You see, though, I mean, I don't think, at least sort of in the DNA, that they're all that different. I mean,
No.
they're both incredibly smooth and well-playing action platformers. With a nice, interesting twist and a good amount of strategy. As I say, this isn't just a stomp on enemies and run for the end zone sort of a game. As we've discussed, you need to sort of think about how you're playing. You need to collect those hearts, which, as you say, are not for health, but ammunition, essentially. And it's a bit more than just a left to right to left, get to the end sort of a game. And I think that's to its credit.
Yeah, for sure.
Also, I just love the fucking setting.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt, does it? When we're like a couple of spooky boys and we like our vampires and our ghosts.
Where are you a Dracula fan?
I am, yeah.
I mean, there's just something about the guy, especially in Castlevania. And what I do love about these early Castlevania games is that they do really lean into that sort of hammer horror style of
Yeah.
of spooky. It's less the sort of, the series would go on to be sort of with that sort of anime, almost manga sort of
Hmm.
style as it went on. But in these early days, it was, almost Christopher Lee, Bela Lugosi sort of
Oh
level of
yeah.
cheese. And, you've got the mummies, Frankenstein, bats and all of that going on. And I just love that. It's a proper Halloweeny sort of game that we're covering in February.
Right. We should just make sure to have just all kinds of spooky just whenever we can, because
Oh,
I'm here for it.
I
Just
am.
yeah, it's just funny, like, right, you're in this castle, you're in Dracula's castle, and he's got some mummies, he's got a Frankenstein's monster for some, it's Cravensworth's monster.
Cravensworth's monster. You really are the most devious bastard in Castlevania.
Yeah. New York City. So I'm gonna say that instead of Frankenstein and little Igor, that is definitely Cravensworth's monster and like a little baby Colin Robinson. That's now canon.
That is canon. And
if you haven't watched What We Do in the Shadows, you need to. If you're
Oh,
listening to this, just
sort
get on
yourselves out. Get on it. Good bit of Matt Berry. It's been a very Matt Berry sort of an evening, isn't it?
Yeah, it has. It
Yeah.
has, especially when you're talking spooky vampires and the dark,
And the dark.
darkness. You need to tell me about Dracula, because I cannot. Let's be honest. I'm not getting past death. Death is gonna probably kick my ass unless, and the level leading up to death is very, very challenging for me as well. But I would say, I want to say I have seen the death fight. And I may have even seen the bridge, but I might be remembering that wrong, because I may be thinking of Rondo of Blood, because the layout of the castle in this original game and in Rondo of Blood is very, very similar.
Oh yeah, there are a lot of similarities.
So Dracula, I'm not getting there.
Dracula. Dracula starts. Let's talk about this fucking level. So you've got a bridge, and you know how much you love bridges, and interspersed all over this bridge are several phantom bats, the boss from level 1. So that's a start. And then you go into the clock tower, which I don't care what fucking Castlevania you're playing, the clock tower is always a ball ache. And admittedly, it's a lot shorter in this game, but you've got flea men, Medusa heads, the birds flying around, all of that shit, a multitude of different platforms and what have you. And that's where I find my one and only place where that stopwatch is the most useful, because I'm just spamming that thing and getting out of that clock tower as quickly as I fucking can.
Yeah,
And
I'm looking at a map of it. And Jesus.
Yeah.
Wait, when you're on the
Right.
gears, do they turn like they do in other games, or are they pretty stationary platforms?
It's stationary it's the stationary platforms and the stairs that you're using. The gears are just kind of the window dressing, unless I'm remembering what I did.
Okay, because it
2
looks like
hours
you have
ago.
to platform on the gears, and I know that in later games, like, the gears will turn, and so like when you're on the platform, it's almost like being on a backwards elevator. Basically, like you're on
look, see if I
you're
can't
on it
find.
and the gears turning, so it moves you. So you have to like make sure you're walking forward and jumping at the right time, and then like of course the enemies complicate things.
If you can go on the gears in this, I can't remember. I was using the platforms and the stairs and what have you.
Right.
You'd think, given that I was playing this not 2 hours ago.
Oh, those aren't those gears. Those gears that are like the same color as the bricks are not platforms. Is what
Okay.
you're saying. Those are all background.
I think so, but I'm not looking at a
Okay.
map right now. Oh,
I mean,
hang
it
on.
doesn't make it any easier. I'll say that.
Oh, okay, those gears.
Yeah.
Ooh, do you know what? Yes, I think you can, although if I did, I wasn't on them for very long.
Yeah,
That's a good
I
point.
would be like,
'Cause
I'm
it's
gonna get
like-
myself off this fucking gear. If,
I
if
just-
gears tell me anything in any platforming game, is that they're turning, and you better get your ass moving.
Yeah, and that's the key to getting through the clock tower, because you just have to Yeah, I say if you've got that stopwatch, spam it, get through it, and you're golden. Because then you get to the very familiar ascending staircase that you just know from any other Castlevania game is basically end game.
Oh yeah,
And
where it's like there's no enemies and it's just like a long staircase with the moon in the background. Yeah, some shit's about
that's
to
it.
go down when you get to the
It
top.
it is, and yeah, you find Dracula, and his big spooky face floats up above the ground, and then is met by the body that appears underneath it. And the name of the game is to hit that very tiny target that is Dracula's face, while either jumping over or whipping the fireballs that he throws out from underneath his cloak. And it is exactly as precise as that sounds. And what I
Yeah.
fucking hate about this part of the fight, and when I say part of the fight, because it's part one of this fight, is he teleports around the screen, which in itself isn't terrible, but this fucking cheesy bastard is not above teleporting right on top of where you're standing and literally just getting a free hit on you. And as you can imagine, like, you do not take much to die from Dracula. So
No, yeah, and it's like it's kind of randomized, right? So
yeah,
it's not like the game's doing it on purpose or that you can avoid it at all. It's just like, oh, you just happened to have some bad luck this time around and he teleported right on top of you. It's like, fuck.
absolutely. And it's just like, and you get like, I don't know, half a second, a second's sort of notice as he teleports in. But as we've
Jesus.
discussed, the movement speed, like if you're right dead center of that Dracula sprite, you don't have time to get away. And like this thing is just chewing through your health. And bear in mind, you've got another even harder fight afterwards. Because assuming you do take Dracula's health down to 0, then he transforms into, I guess it's the spirit of Dracula. It's just basically this great big blue monster that hops around the screen throwing
Oh
fireballs
yeah.
at you. And this thing, Sam, let me tell you, this thing is a fucking sponge. Like,
Ugh.
it's
Does it show a health bar in the top at
oh,
least?
it shows a health bar, but it will take a good 2 or
Yeah.
3 whips to actually take 1 health bar off.
Jesus.
And it's absolutely
And you
ridiculous.
finished this not once but twice. So
And the only way I finished this, and bear in mind, it must have taken me 50 attempts today. Because just before the fight with the first Dracula, you can sort of go up and down the stairs and reset the candelabra in the entryway, and basically just grind for hearts. And
can
there
you
is
really? So you can actually exit out of the arena and just kind of like go back down the stairs and back up again?
well, basically, there's a little entryway to that arena. So this is before you
Yeah.
get to the first Dracula fight. So if you go too far in, you're locked in, of course. But
Oh, okay.
if in that little hallway beforehand, there's like 2 or 3 of these candles to whip, and you do that, you go down the stairs, which takes you to another screen, immediately back up, and everything's reset itself. So you can literally
Okay, yeah, I
just
see what you mean.
you can grind for these hearts, and
Within your
they're
time limit.
within
Keep
your
in
time
mind.
limit. And inside Dracula's room, there is holy water. And basically,
Yes.
what I do is I try and get through that Dracula fight without using anything, just the whip. And
Right.
then when you get to the big blue, uh, you better just start cheesing those those holy waters, because again, you can, if your timing is good, you can basically keep him locked in one place until you've won the fight. It's a long and drawn out way of doing it, but
Yeah.
gets you the.
Do you alternate holy water and whips to kind of like maximize the
I
amount of time that you have holy water to throw?
I mean, if you're good at that, then sure. But I just find, you know what? I'm not giving
Yeah.
this fucker a single chance to move, because
Yeah.
he takes up the sprite of that thing. Literally takes up. I don't know how much of the room, but it's certainly
Right,
several
a lot of
several
it.
times. And it's hopping across the screen, and you know the only way to get out of the way is to walk underneath it while it's hopping over
Slowly.
you.
Yeah.
Exactly. And oh my god, this fucking guy. Oh, it
You
felt
know,
good,
I
but
I think
what a fight.
I think it's really interesting that like games, especially like certain games, I don't want to say all games or all retro games. I don't want to make such a broad sweeping statement, but games will. I love it when a game gives you the item that you need to best tackle whatever you're up against, but like maybe it's hidden or maybe it's just kind of around. Like it seems like this holy water tactic is like probably one of the best ways to deal with this this second form of Dracula, and they put it there in the room with you, so
Yeah.
it's there. You just have to find it and use it properly. It's
Sure.
that kind of thing I really appreciate. I can't think of another good example, but like,
Which is
Well, I
why
don't know.
it goes back to the point I made earlier. It's just like this game is very fucking difficult, but it is fair. It is not broken.
no.
It will test you, it will challenge you, but at no point do I just think, well, except maybe for when like Dracula is teleported on top of me for the 50th time.
Oh,
It's
right.
like, okay, this is a little bit of a fucking cheese, but otherwise,
but you can play the odds there, because obviously you can see him teleport away. What you should probably do in that case is if you can react fast enough or whatever, just stop moving and let him teleport wherever he's going to teleport. And the chances that he teleports directly on top of you are probably pretty slim as long as you're not moving. But as soon as you're moving, if he teleports right in front of you and you walk into him, you're kind of hosed either way. Like, really just kind of,
I think
stop.
that yes and no. Because I think if you stand still, he'll just be like, right, well, I'm fucking coming for you. And yeah,
Right.
if you are
Okay.
moving, he can teleport right in front of you, or he could teleport behind you. There's no real rhyme or reason to it. So it's just,
Yeah.
I find that
I guess it's part luck.
it's a lot of luck. It's a lot of luck, but brilliant fight, very satisfying to beat, and it'll be a good few years before I put myself through that again. Because my God, does it get the blood pumping? It really does.
You are like probably in the vast minority of gamers that have ever finished this game, I would say. Like, it's like when you get trophies on like PlayStation games where it's like very rare, 0.2% of players achieve this trophy or whatever. Like, this is your version of platinum. You beat Dracula. Like, I'm sure there are very few people that can do that. Hats off to you.
I am pretty fucking proud of that. But Sam, do you know what? I have every faith in your abilities to do the same. I think if you stick to and again, like I said, with this being on Switch on the Anniversary Collection,
yes,
like that feature of being able to repeat a level as many times as you like, as long as you don't turn the system off. I mean, that still applies on the Switch, except on the Switch, you have the added benefit of being able to put the console to sleep and come back to it later, and you'll still be on that level. You couldn't do that on the NES.
No.
So,
yeah, that's what's really like, fuck.
If you can make it to... Oh, and one thing I didn't mention, that Dracula fight, if you do game over, you start again at the bottom of the stairs before the Dracula fight.
Oh, but okay, so you don't start back at the clock tower. Okay, so that's actually not bad. Exactly. That's
Konami.
That's perfect.
You beauties.
Yeah.
Like,
I miss Konami. Like can we just pause and just like, I'd say most of the games that I've played from the NES era that I really enjoy, I would say they're either like a native Nintendo game, like a Mario or whatever. But if we're just talking third party, like it's either Capcom or it's Konami.
Oh, both of them killed it. Both of them killed it.
Yeah.
And
like, and I miss Konami. Like, I think they're kind of, are they completely defunct or absorbed into something else? But they don't really, like, we haven't seen new Castlevania under the Castlevania name. You get Bloodstained, which is a spiritual successor, but it's still not exactly the same,
which I will play.
Yeah,
at some point.
I mean, I'm not mad about it that it exists. But like, we don't get new Castlevania releases under the Castlevania name anymore. Like, we're not seeing new. I mean, what's the most recent Metal Gear? Like, come back, Konami.
Yeah, I think they just
make stuff for us.
I just think they're into those fucking pachinko machines or whatever they're called.
Those print money in Japan.
Yeah, for sure.
We don't need to make Castlevania. We're just gonna make little steel ball launching pachinko games.
Well, I'll just have to replay Castlevania again.
Oh wow!
There you are. And before we, because I think we're getting fairly close to wrapping up here.
Yeah,
But I think we would be remiss if we didn't at least mention the music in this game.
yeah.
Because
Yeah.
go on.
Just some of my favorite jams. I'd say like you hear, although in this game it's different. Like they hadn't really come into their own as far as like making such, banging tracks on every single level. But like you definitely get Vampire Killer to start with, and then it kind of is okay for a while. But it's still got that spooky minor key. You're in a spooky castle vibe, so I'm here for it.
It gets points just for having Vampire Killer, because that every time, and it's right from the jump. It's just you're feeling it. You're just okay. Let's have it. I mean, no bloody tears, which
that's a. What is your? Do you prefer Vampire Killer or Bloody Tears? That's a tough question.
It is a tough question, and I'm kind of
picking which of your children you want to save or whatever.
I'm kind of biased right now because I just recently watched, obviously, the Castlevania series on Netflix.
Yeah,
and I sent
check out.
I sent you this video, the sort of hallway fight scene with Alucard, Cypher, and Trevor, and they just aren't playing that version of Bloody Tears, and I was fully erect. Like it was just
full bonus,
full bonus. It could go either way. I'll say Bloody Tears just because it sounds more epic. But Castlevania is known for its fantastic music, and it started here. And yeah, not every track in this game slaps as hard as Vampire Killer, but that track more than
it's
kind of
hard. It's kind of hard to slap as hard as Vampire Killer, if I'm being honest.
Exactly.
It's a high bar.
Iconic. Right. Is that everything? Have you got anything else?
Yeah. No. I don't think I do. I just, this is a game that I'll always come back to now that I've played it, a few times. I've never finished it. Maybe one day I will. Play it on the collection, It's accessible pretty much everywhere. I play it on my Switch. I think those collections are on pretty much everything, and they allow you to, there's extra goodies in there. Like you can save state. It's not as aggressive a save state system as what am I trying to think of? Like a Switch Online where you can have like multiple files and you can save exactly on certain screens and stuff like that. You can't do that. You can have like one save per run, but it's still helpful to just be able to go back if you're wanting to practice a certain section or something like that.
Makes sense.
Great value. It always goes on sale, so it's got a great value to it. Like you're getting, I think you get like 4 or 5 or 6 games, because it's got like Castlevania's 1 through 4. It's got Bloodlines, and it's got Kid Dracula, which was like a Japan only Game Boy game. That's really crazy looking. We might do a quick play on that one at some point. But this is a great collection.
Plenty of other Castlevania games for you and I to cover at some point.
Oh, I know. It's like maybe
we'll even tempt Brian into one. You never know.
Yeah, this has been Castlevania Corner with Sam and Alan.
Oh, I like that. So do you want to give us? Go on.
Yeah, the only Castlevania game I don't like that much is Dracula X on the Super Nintendo. That one can eat a dick. That one's very very difficult.
Can't
just play Rondo of Blood because it's basically the same.
I can speak to that.
Yeah.
Great game.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So do you want to give your final thoughts?
Yeah,
slap
final
a score
thoughts
on this thing.
Yeah, if you want to see where it all began, if you're a fan of this is not a Metroidvania, so I don't want to lead anyone astray thinking that this is like some, awesome like open area, Metroidvania, for lack of a better term, because I guess there's not one. If you want to see where it all began, this is definitely a fun look into the past, and you can see a lot of the the direct lineage of Castlevania games, where you're gonna feel right at home if you've played, anything beyond, I would say, like Super Nintendo onward Castlevania. You see a lot of level design that's very similar, and not in a bad way, not like it's recycled. I would say it's almost upcycled, because you see the improvements, and you see something that's familiar yet different every time you play a different Castlevania game, because there's different mechanics added in, and upgrades, and it looks better. And this is where it all began. This game is going to get a very high score, even though I can't beat it. I recognize the brilliance. It's, if you're skilled enough to beat it in one sitting, it's probably a pretty short game. I think you could probably finish it in like an hour or so. But yeah, fun to pick up and play. You come back to it the next day, you're going to get that weird like muscle memory attachment that you get when you come back to a game and beat something that you couldn't before. It rewards the persistence, I think. And as long as you figure out how to play within the rules that the game sets out, as far as like how your character moves and how you navigate the space, man, what a game. I'm going to give this. Do you want me to give it the score?
Go ahead. Give it a score.
This is like an easy, like a 9 out of 10 for me. I'm blown away that this was possible in 1986 when it came out. 1987 in the United States, but I think it originally came out on the Famicom Disk System in Japan in 86. And I think that is just what a brilliant game to come out so early in the life cycle of, like, I'd say home consoles in general. But man, what a corner Nintendo turned with the Famicom and the NES.
Right. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm spent.
Oh,
you go. Your turn.
I tell you what, I need a cigarette after that summary, and I don't even smoke. Anyone who's listened to this show for any amount of time knows full well how I feel about Castlevania. I love this series dearly. I haven't played a game in this series. I haven't played all of them, but I've definitely played most of them. And there isn't a bad one in the bunch, or at least not that I've come across. And it all began with this almost schlocky little B-movie horror spooky game on the Nintendo Entertainment System. And I know that Castlevania is sort of, I guess it's much like Dracula himself, just asleep until the next time it rises.
Yeah.
But the fact that we're still talking about it now, the fact that it has such a rich history full of games, it's just like it all started here. And that's because this is an ambitious action platforming game that never overreaches and overextends itself. It's very capable, it's solid, it's responsive, it plays well, it's fantastic to look at and listen to. It's just a wonderful, wonderful experience. It is very, very difficult, very rewarding. Again, as Sam said, if you learn what you need to do, if you put in your reps, it is beatable. Honestly, if an idiot like me can do it, just about anyone can. It's just, I don't know what else to say. It's just beautiful in its simplicity, I think, is the best way to sum this game up. It's just everything works. It's got just enough strategy in there to elevate it above other platformers of the time. It's bad radio, but 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I don't think that's bad.
Well,
go play Castlevania, damn it.
Absolutely, abso-fucking-lutely. Play Castlevania and thank us later. And then play the rest of them.
Yeah.
And thank us
even more. I had one more thing to say about the graphics, is that as far back as this game goes, like if you look at other games that come out around this time, there's definitely some questionable looking sprites or just kind of like graphical assets that are just like, what the fuck is that weird looking thing? You never really have any question what anything is in this game. Everything looks You know, like the castle walls look like castle walls. The
Yep.
doors look like doorways. The little gremlin men look like little dudes. Like the skeletons look like skeletons. You know, birds and all that kind of stuff is very easy to distinguish what the hell things are. And I think that is a feat unto its own at this time.
Absolutely.
It would have been easy to just be like, it's good enough. Just bullshit kids are going to play whatever. Like they took the care and put a lot of work into this.
I could not agree with you more. Fantastic point.
No notes, right?
No notes. No notes. Nailed it. All right, Sam. So if people want to argue with us or agree with us, or if they just love Castlevania as much as we do, where can they find us to tell us how right we are?
Well, you should go over to linktree/Retrotopia and find all of our links to our social medias, the Discord, the Patreon. Come join us over there. It's a good time. We've seems like numbers have been up and we've been getting a lot more downloads. So I know there's more of you out there that haven't joined us to chat with us and join in our fun and our rollicking good time that we have over in the Discord. So come join us because we have some fun over there and you should be a part of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, you should. Well, thank you, as always, Sam, for being my co-pilot on another foray into Castlevania. Always Absolutely. A good time. And
I'll always revisit Castlevania with you.
Absolutely. And like I said, one day maybe we'll even find Brian. Who knows? He's in there somewhere, probably sucking on some wall meat. Oh, geez. For everyone else, thanks for listening. And again, keep your strength up with plenty of that delicious wall meat. And remember to always grab the axe.